For the first time, patients will have access in their phone to their entire electronic dental records where they can pay their bill, do a virtual consult, all sorts of stuff. Because it's all about patients first, right?
This episode of the Tooth or Dare podcast is brought to you by our friends at Philips Sonicare. Thank you for helping dental professionals elevate oral care with your partnership and dedication. Philips Sonicare offers comprehensive oral care solutions catering to the entirety of our patients' needs. To achieve a healthier oral environment for your patients and provide them with a more radiant smile, Philips Sonicare provides an array of products designed to optimize their oral hygiene regimen. These offerings are meticulously crafted to ensure optimum efficiency, allowing clinicians to tailor their brushing experiences accordingly to their specific patient needs and requirements, whether it be teeth whitening, enhanced plaque removal, or overall gum health. Sonicare electric toothbrushes harness an impressive technology boasting 62,000 brush head movements per minute. This innovative approach gently pulses water between the teeth, effectively dislodging plaque and facilitating its removal. Backed by over a century of healthcare expertise, Philips Sonicare instills confidence in users, and it's consistently helping us clinicians get the results we desire. For more information about Philips Sonicare products, please visit the link in the caption below. Welcome back to the Tooth or Dare podcast, peeps, with your peep, Irene. Hello. I hope you're having a great day. I have a wonderful guest who, funny enough, we just recorded on his podcast and I said, hey, what are you doing now? Do you want to record on my podcast too? And here we are. Hello, Dr. Bryan Laskin. How's it going?
Great. I just did this podcast with this amazing person. So I didn't think the day could get better, but here we are. And we didn't even have to go anywhere. So your podcast is the Patient First podcast. You have a bunch of other things that you do. As we can see, there's like this interesting screen behind you, which I will ask you to flip through what those are in a second. But maybe you can take a minute and give me your intro. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Yeah, thanks. And this is going to be a little embarrassing because I literally just told you how the most interesting people have short bios because you had a short bio, and I don't know how to make my bio short. So I'm not interesting. But I'm a dentist from Minneapolis, grew my practices, sold them to Dental Care Alliance, where I served as Chief Innovation Officer for 3 years. But I'm also a tech entrepreneur. I've trained thousands of dentists on CAD/CAM, CT imaging, created multiple products, Opera DDS, which is a patient engagement solution that we scaled to about 25,000 dental practices. It's now part of Vine Dental. Also Digital Nitrous, which is a therapeutic virtual reality platform. Have an educational platform called Upgrade Dental. And currently my focus is on solving the problem of data accessibility through a platform that I'm a co-founder of called ToothApps, where we do health information exchange. And when I saw you at the Chicago Midwinter last week, we launched our newest product that I'm super excited about, which is our patient application. So for the first time, as federally mandated in the United States of America, patients will have access to their entire electronic dental records for the first time. We're making it free for practices and free for patients. So for the first time, patients will have access in their phone to their entire electronic dental records where they can pay their bill, do a virtual consult, all sorts of stuff. Because it's all about patients first, right? And if patients don't have their information, A, you're violating federal law, and B, it's worse for everybody, right? And so I think that it's going to be the biggest tool to increase case acceptance since the intraoral camera and elevation of patient care since God knows what. So that's my very not interesting too long bio. What's that?
And the best thing since sliced bread.
That's right. I don't know. Sliced bread is, since sliced bread. Yeah. Mm.
Okay, so I have a huge love for this concept because my biggest pet peeve, as a startup practice owner, every patient is a new patient for me. So I know nothing. I know nothing about their previous dental records, their history, whatever treatments they've had. The email that we send with our, release form is quite lengthy, and it says, I want to see everything as far back as baby teeth. And in some cases, patients don't have that, or the practice that they left before that only sent the most recent bite wings, and the practice before that sent the most recent bite wings. So then, over time, things just kind of disappear into thin air, which makes it really difficult to treatment plan, especially restorative work. How many times has this filling been replaced? How many times has this crown been replaced? How many times has this endo been done? We don't know any of this information. So I think this is really interesting. Can you tell me about where this concept came from? I guess it's an adaptation of what's happening in medicine, right? Medicine, all of our records should technically be able to be transferred from one hospital to the other. At least here in Toronto, it is. Where did you come up with this idea, and how did you do it?
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's again.
Start from the beginning. How about you tell me about you?
Yeah, I'm not going to have short answers here.
But start from the beginning. Where did you go to school? What's your kind of like background? Because I feel like you don't just wake up one day and say, I'm retiring from clinical dentistry and now I'm going to go into tech. Like what's the story?
I mean, I like to say, so I was born in 1972, the year of Pong. So I'll start at the very beginning. So the very first video game and I were born at the same time. So I've always been a gigantic nerd. And so I went to dental school with flawed logic that I won't go into, but basically I thought it would calm me down because I kind of have, raging ADHD and love playing with technology. And I thought that every dentist I met was very calm, and that's not because it's a calming profession. But then, so early on in dental school, I saw my first CAD CAM system and got very involved with that right away because I just knew that that's where things were going. Then I started developing my own technology. Opera DDS was the first platform I created.
What did that platform do?
So we started off doing secure email, digital case collaboration, and intra-office messaging between employees in the office. Then we expanded to recall and very popular paperless forms product and reviews. And our forms product had medical histories. And the leading software vendor in the US would not allow our medical history to write back, not because they couldn't do it, but because they sold paperless forms that were crappy. And so in order to compete, they wanted to have certain functionality that they felt were crucial, even though we paid them literally half the revenue for our product to integrate with their product. 50% of the gross revenue before taxes and everything, we paid to them for the integration.
Wow.
And they wouldn't let us write back into the medical history, which put millions of patients at risk because if the dentist or hygienist was looking at their software versus Opera, it was wrong. It was outdated. That's what kicked us all off. So when I sold that platform, I thought, what's the biggest problem that I'm relatively uniquely positioned to solve? A, I know technology. B, I know dentistry. C, I work a lot with standard development. And so I thought, you put those together and, we kind of have to be nonpartisan, not part of a large company that does this already to come up with a ubiquitous solution. So I started working with standard development organizations, including the American Dental Association and Dental Standards Institute, and working with my co-founder, who I've known who's just a technical genius, because this is a technical lift. Opera, I didn't have a co-founder, but this was a different level of security, privacy, cures compliance, HIPAA compliance, and wrote the standard, which was just accredited by the American Dental Association last month, called ODIN, the Oral Data Interoperability Network. We have another one coming called THOR, Transferable Holistic Oral Records, which talks about how patients get access to their data. So we've got ODIN and THOR, and then we developed this technology, ToothApps, and ToothApps Patients. And it's been about 2.5 years in the making. And now the systems and standards are ready to rock right about nowish, which is, I'm very excited. So it's been a long road, but I truly believe that this is the biggest problem in dentistry. You alluded to one of the big issues. When a new patient comes to your office, we act like that history is not important. Whereas the first time we have if a patient has a problem in our practices, the first thing we do is look back and see the history. Referrals, 50% of referrals don't actually see the specialist today in the US. I mean, that's just moronic. And
why do you think that is?
Because there's no paper trail. I think there's several reasons. One is oftentimes, and it's just very similar to 1/3 of dental emergencies end up in an ER, right? In the US.
1/3 of dental emergencies end up in the ER.
Yep. Not dental emergencies of people that don't have insurance, just everybody. Why? Well, on the weekend, most dental practices have on their voicemail, if you have
a
dental emergency, call the emergency room, right? Which is like, okay, well, I guess I'll just go there, right? That doesn't make any sense. There's no paper trail. If you refer someone to, let's say somebody has a broken tooth, they're a new patient, they haven't been to the dentist in 20 years, they're in pain, they come to your office and you don't feel comfortable extracting the tooth. So refer them to an oral surgeon, you give them pain meds and the x-ray. Well, there's a reason why the patient hasn't been to the dentist in 20 years, because they don't like going there. You haven't helped them. You just give them some medication. They start taking it. They feel better. Antibiotics kick in. They're like, oh, it's fine. And they just never go. And nobody knows because the systems don't talk to each other. Right. We've solved that by closing the loop on referrals, right? You'll see because when you connect the systems through interoperability, you can see what was done at the other practice. You can also, when you refer them, you don't like send them with an x-ray. You open up the components of the electronic dental record to that specialist so they can see the entire history too and provide adequate care. Sometimes, I think oftentimes, and I'm guilty of this, the dentist will refer a patient because they just don't have enough information and they think that the specialist will just figure it out. Yeah. Well, if you don't have the information, they don't have the information. Nobody has the information. They're just going to do whatever they do. If you're an endodontist, you're going to do endo. If you're an oral surgeon, likely could extract a tooth. I mean, that's the sad reality of it, right? So let's solve the core issue, which is getting the information. Information is what leads to a diagnosis. If we don't have the right information, we have what's called a misdiagnosis. And I think that's happening at least on average once a day in the average dental practice.
Least. I had a new patient this week on Tuesday. Young professional came in. She had an endo on her upper anterior central, and our numbering, it's 2-1. I guess it's number 8 for you. 3, 4,
nicely
5,
done.
6, 7, 8.
2-1, I think, is 9, but yeah.
So 8 and 9. So 1 was an implant, and then one was an endo tooth that had fractured. So there's a composite resin on it. She was recommended to have a crown. Done by obviously 2 separate clinicians, both of whom she does not know the names of because they were done like over a decade ago. So now I'm waiting for records from her family or her previous dentist who is taking their sweet time. We sent the forms in like 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks has gone by. She's finally in for her first visit with me. I have no information. I have no radiographs. I don't have a letter from a previous specialist, and she doesn't remember the person's name. We're on the phone trying to call the dental office to see if they could send us everything. Patient is in the chair. I feel extremely unprepared. So, and then at this point, what do? Do you cancel the appointment? Do you say, I don't have all of the information to actually be able to do this comprehensive new patient examination with you? And then you end up having empty chair time and a pissed off patient because we can't get them in now for another month. It's a huge, messy problem. And we had this conversation on your podcast that as the hygienist, I want to see radiographs. I need to see if there's bone loss. I need to see if there's burnished subgingival calculus or calculus at all. Patient doesn't want to take radiographs because they think they just had them done when the reality is most of the time they're already overdue. So they're refusing radiographs, and I have to come up with an AAP classification, staging and perio grading based on pocketing that could be incorrect because my probe isn't actually sitting on bone, it's sitting on alleged calculus. And sometimes they feel the same. So it's this weird, like, ethical dilemma. But then what does the dentist say? Oh, it's fine. Just go ahead, do the cleaning. Don't worry about it. Just keep going. Keep swimming. Just keep swimming. So it's this like hot mess express of this ethical dilemma between clinicians, and then the patient sees it as we're disorganized and unprepared.
Well, because we are disorganized and unprepared, but it's not our fault.
Rightfully so.
I mean, it's not the fault of the clinicians. It's the fault of the systems that they're working within. Right. And that's my core focus right now, because I think that is going to lead not just to the biggest like elevation of care, But innovation requires this. If you have a small innovative company, and this is kind of where I come from, and I work with a lot of startups, and you're going to try to change things, but you go to a large vendor, unless you have scale where they can make enough money from you, they basically tell you to pound sand. And even if you're big, they're like, we don't know either. We want to buy. Maybe we'll buy you and hold on to you until you're archaic, like the rest of our software, right? Or we'll try to copy you in a bad way and crush it, crush the innovation. So I think that having sort of a level playing field of this data accessibility helps absolutely everybody in dentistry. Patients, dentists, dental team members, and also the technology companies, because that's what. In reality, that's what drives innovation is having the ability. And if you look at our systems in dentistry, on average, they're probably, and I'm being generous, 30 years old, right? Sure. It's pretty stupid that you can run your entire life from your phone. You can order everything from a car to a house to a spouse on your phone in an hour, But yet,
wait a minute. Where are we ordering spouses from?
Well, I don't know. I'm too old, but Grandpa Laskin thinks.
I don't know. I don't know if you just blushed or if that's the pink background.
I just came from Florida, so I'm actually sunburned, which my wife actually was yelling at me about. But why can't we see our schedule on in our Google Calendar, or more appropriately for HIPAA, our Google Calendar in our schedule, like in a mobile friendly way. Secure messaging is ubiquitous. Why do we end up sending X-rays through Gmail, not securely, or text messaging? It just doesn't make any sense. And so, but the reason why is because the sort of underlying framework is not just bad, it's completely missing. And that's what we're trying to build.
Let's talk about a little bit about your business acumen, because I find it's quite unique. Most dentists or practicing dentists wouldn't even know where to begin to take some of these concepts and ideas that you have, the wish list of things that, you're probably not the only person that has complained about all of these things, but you did something about it. How does one go from doing an MO on an upper molar to saying, I'm going to solve the greatest problem in records history for dentists? How do you even speak that language?
Well, good question. So I think it's really two things. One is I am wired to be an entrepreneur. The second one is related. A lot of training. I literally just came back from a 2-day entrepreneur training retreat with some people that I've been in a group with for about 10 years, who are also just rocking. One of my friends' companies just went public last year. We've been in a group together. So just a lot of A, I enjoy it, and B, a lot of work, like continuing the work. I think those that like, you look at the greatest performers, they always have the best coaches. And so I've always sought out the best coaches. I currently work with 2 different coaches, and I do a lot of reading and training. And so it's a never ending, learning process, I think, for me, and trying stuff. That's the other thing, is that I have putting it lightly, I have a high risk tolerance too. Like I like to try things and be scared. Yeah. So I like that feeling. Like for me, I lecture quite a bit in dentistry, and I got started lecturing because it made me completely uncomfortable. And then once I got comfortable lecturing, I actually stopped lecturing for about a decade, because it was like, it bored me. So for me, I just had this like weird pathological tendency to do risky things that I think will have a payout, right? I don't just do, I like snowboarding and stuff, but like, I don't just do risky things. I like to do things that are calculated risks. And one person I was talking to who used to be the head of the HHS, she told me after we were talking for a while, she says, "Oh, you're an impact junkie." And I was like, because she is too. And I'm like, that's Guilty. Totally it. For me, I'm a junkie for the math, to making as the biggest impact I can.
Yeah. Huh. Do you recognize or remember any big business fails that you've made or decisions thinking back now? You're like, yeah, I probably should have done that a little differently.
Yes. I mean, I've had big fails, but I'm such an entrepreneur, and entrepreneurs are eternal optimists that I never even look at them as failures. We have a saying at our company. One of our core values is learning. And so we succeed or we learn, period. That's it. So I don't view them as failures. I view them as, because my biggest failures have by far been my biggest learning experiences. And so I think of like, the first thing that pops to mind is recent, like failure of a partnership. And now I structure how we do partnerships completely differently. And so for me, it was, I don't even view it as failure because I'm such a eternal optimist, which I think you have to be. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, if you're going to be doing the
otherwise you're sitting there dwelling on. I recently read this book. I mean, not recently now, but I've reread it again. And it's called The Midnight Library. Have you heard of it?
No, I've not read that.
It's like a fiction book, but it's kind of profoundly written. Where this girl, spoiler alert, she dies early in the book, very quickly, first chapter. And she finds herself in this like limbo afterlife, living in a library, and the library is run by her elementary school librarian. And all of the books on the shelves are other lives she would have lived had she made a different decision. And there's one awesome master book, and the master book is called the Book of Regrets. So it's like this big, huge, I envision it to be this like, red leather bound book, kind of like an Encyclopedia Britannica. And you flip through all of these regrets, and then it illuminates the book on the shelf that she gets to go then pull, and is then submerged in that exact moment where that decision was made. And she gets to relive it or change it or stay there. But if she chooses that she doesn't want to stay there, she immediately gets sent back to the Midnight Library, and she's to pull another book and live another life. And at some point, without her knowing, the library is going to fall apart or like disintegrate, and she needs to pick a life before the library disappears. So, I think of what would my book of regrets be? And none of those regrets would ever be business related. I feel the same way as you. I feel like, I've had some made some stupid mistakes, and it's cost me money. But I don't consider that to ever be a failure. If anything, it's made me a better business person in 2.0 or 3.0 or 4.0.
Yeah. One of my favorite sayings too is, do your best, forget the rest. And the hardest is the second, right? So as long as, but if you're truly doing your best, which I am very sort of hard on myself. So I do always truly believe I'm doing the best I can. And if you're doing that, the rest of it, you kind of have to, I think you have to learn to let go of, because like you said, like, the stupid things. Well, if that's all the knowledge that you had and that was the best you could do, like that's the way the world works. You can't do everything perfectly all the time. And if you could, the wins wouldn't be nearly as profound, right?
Do you celebrate all of your wins?
Absolutely not. No, I'm horrible at celebrating my wins. It's like I was just talking to a friend of mine who's selling his business this week, and we talked about how big wins in business are probably the most anticlimactic things. It's like, oh, great, it was huge. All right, what's next?
But they take so long. Like by the time a big win becomes like you're done, it's finished, the deal, ink is dry, like you've been doing it for years now. So it's lost its excitement. I feel like the idea of a win is far more exciting than it actually coming to fruition. That excitement you get when you come up with an idea for the first time and you're sharing it with like, your core group or perhaps someone that might invest in you, like that is the most exciting thing. Not the like, and then I did this last week and Yeah.
And having been through the cycle a few times now, selling practices, selling businesses, and being part of other people's businesses are being sold and stuff. you hit on it. I think the key is to celebrate the journey more than the destination. It's cliche to say, but sometimes cliches are cliches for a reason. And so I truly now, like, this is probably the first cycle that I'm on with ToothApps, where I'm really enjoying the journey of like building this and going through the motions that I just know, all the shifting of the sales and stuff like that, where whatever the end result is, I don't think it's going to be as gratifying as the journey this time.
You think so, huh?
Yeah. Well, this one might be a pretty good destination.
I hope you're wrong.
Too, so,
I really hope you're wrong. Well, I end the podcast with one question for everyone that you must answer with whatever pops into your mind first. Are you ready for it?
Absolutely.
What's one thing you wish you didn't know?
Ooh, one thing I wish I didn't know. That's a good question. I think the one thing that I wish I didn't know was was the effect of mourning somebody who's very close to you. That's the one thing I wish I didn't know.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Of course.
All of Bryan's info is linked in the description below. Feel free to reach out to him. And until next time, thank you, Bryan.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.